YouTube frogs, welcome to my complete guide for Firefly, the newest 5-star destruction unit in honkaistarrail. Firefly is the newest prototype of break damage, superseding the most recently released boot hill and setting the battlefield ablaze with her wicked Gundam mechanics. In this video, we'll be going over all her traces and what she does, Eidolons and any gameplay changes, optimal choices for Lycons and Relics, recommended stat ranges for a full build, and team synergies that she carries. And just as a quick reminder, this is the creator experience server, so things are subject to change upon full release. Anything not accurate will be in the description. Besides that, if you have any questions, I stream almost every night on Twitch, so you can ask me there, link in the description. Let's begin. So, Firefly's gameplay design is literally the ultimate Gundam gameplay and built to heavily abuse super break damage. Her gimmick revolves around her staying in her Ultimate's Gundam transformation mode as long as possible and has a variety of built-in ways to maintain that ult uptime. Here's how she works. She's got two different forms, Human and Sam. In human form, her goal is to get full energy and transform as fast as possible. That full energy is 240, which is almost double that of normal characters, and you'll see why. This is achieved with her E, which sacrifices 40% of her max HP to give her 60% of her max energy. If she doesn't have enough HP, don't worry, she'll be left with 1 HP after using this skill. Now, at the start of a new fight, you may not have energy at all because maybe autoplay used your ult when the enemy had 1 HP. No need to worry about that with Firefly. She has a talent that tops her energy to 50% if she was below that at the start of the fight. With this talent, she also gains a damage reduction the lower HP she has, effect resistance, and even a debuff cleanse at max energy, making her exceptionally tanky so she doesn't easily die when trying to transform. Some pretty nice quality of life. Once she has max energy, which all she needs is 1 E if she starts at 50%, she can now enter Gundam state or her Sam state by activating her ult and gains a ton of buffs. First, she immediately gains a free turn, then both her basic attack and skill are enhanced. She gains break efficiency, and enemies that she hits have increased break vulnerability, and also has a special speed counter that replaces a typical ult duration. This speed counter is on the action bar and determines when Firefly's ult finishes. It's pretty slow with a base speed of 70, so if Firefly has at least 140 speed after ulting, you'll be able to get at least 3 enhanced attacks in before her ult ends, because this includes the first attack you get for free. If you manage to get Firefly to 210 speed, she'll be able to get at least 4 enhanced attacks before her ult ends, which is the ideal sweet spot for her speed. Now, this may sound like a lot, but don't worry, her ult has built-in speed buff to help you achieve this threshold. In this special ult state, Firefly gains up to 60 speed herself, which is based on the trace level, which allows her to push to that 210 speed threshold without much trouble. When she is in Sam form, her whole kit finally comes alive. A2, A4, and A6 trace all are active during this state. First, A2 trace. Sam reduces toughness even if the enemy does not have fire weakness at 55% of the original value. Her A4 trace gives break effect conversion to super break damage at 235%, and 360 goes to 50%. For her A6 trace, every 10 of Sam's attack above 1800 gives 0.8% increased break effect. To simplify that math, if you have 2300 attack on Sam, you'll gain plus 40% additional break effect, and if you have 2800, you'll get plus 80%. The main benefit of this trace node is to give Firefly extra break effect conversion from a secondary stat. In Boot Hill's case, his break effect was converted to extra crit rate and crit damage, but for Firefly, she has no incentive to build crit at all. Instead, Firefly synergizes her extra attack into break effect, which in my opinion is a better balance of stats and allows her to all in on the most important and highest impact stat for her damage, which is break effect. Her main damaging ability is her enhanced skill. Instead of previously consuming HP and giving energy, it now restores HP, applies fire weakness to the main target, and then deals fire damage based on Sam's break effect. The raw damage it deals is fairly unimportant. The main focus is weakness breaking the enemies as fast as possible to then deal super break damage. In Sam form, she aims to only use her skill for maximum AoE and super break damage, but at E0, she consumes a heavy amount of skill points doing this. For this reason, it is advisable to view Firefly like a hyper carry and be more SP conservative with common supports that would team up with her so that she can use them all. If you are planning on pulling Firefly Eidolons, her E1 does eliminate this issue altogether by not consuming skill points when using her enhanced skill. And before you enter battle, you can also choose to use Firefly's technique. Doing so will have her leap into the sky as Sam and look like you're about to call an airstrike. Entering combat in this state will apply fire weakness to all enemies every single wave and deal AoE fire damage to all of those enemies. You basically start the fight with toughness bars heavily damaged or even totally broken, for example for trash mobs. This technique kinda gives her semi AoE appeal, but the real main benefit is that combined with her talent and E energy generation, she has a very fast ramp up time. Essentially, she only needs the first turn to enter Sam form and she'll immediately start dealing heavy super break damage. So, talent priority is very reminiscent of a hyper carry. You must invest into ult, skill, and talent. While skill and talent are technically less necessary, these three traces all benefit each other and amplify her overall capability. Her ultimate is responsible for a speed increase and break vulnerability on enemies, both of which are essential for 1, meeting the speed threshold, and 2, providing additional damage. Her skill is her main damage ability and spammed non-stop in both human and Sam form, but the level itself is not responsible for the actual break damage, so leveling it is less useful than usual. Talent is responsible for damage reduction, so she doesn't die, and effect resistance to reduce debuff chance. Basic is the only trace that is not needed. Her trace branch nodes provide her with 37.3% break effect, 5 speed, and 18% effect resistance. Break effect and speed are essential, with effect resistance being optional but still very useful. Maxing her to 80 out of 80 is a must to access her most important break effect node that grants 10.7%. Eidolons. So while Firefly is exceptional at E0, she is very skill point hungry because her high ult uptime means extra turns, high speed, and constant skill spam, which is all SP draining. I trust that all of you are masters of SP management, but just in case you're tempted, proceed with caution before you drop some extra dough for quality of life. E1, insanely broken. 15% ignore defense on her enhanced skill, and they cost no skill points to use. E2, insanely broken as well. Defeating an enemy or weakness breaking them in Sam form grants Sam an extra turn every other turn. So a normal 210 speed Sam getting 4 attacks now gets 6 attacks, and combined with E1, they don't cost skill points. E3, E5, standard talent level increases. E3 grants skill and basic attack, which don't really matter since they don't scale into break damage. E5s gives ultimate levels, which is important for speed and break vulnerability. E4, effect resistance plus 50% in Sam form, and with 18% trace nodes and 30% from her talent, she's basically 98% effect resistance with E4, meaning she's like immune to debuffs. E6, 20% res penetration and another layer of 50% weakness break efficiency, which directly correlates to increased super break damage, so she literally just one-taps everything. Overall, Firefly's Eidolons are insanely busted for E1 and E2. Everything in the middle is okay, and of course E6 is enemy deletion. Light cones. So Firefly is a destruction character and she needs break effect. She doesn't have scaling with crit either, and she does gain a little bit of benefit from attack percent. Overall, there's not that many choices for her, but the choices that she has are pretty good, so we're in an okay situation. Firefly's signature, 60% break effect, debuffs enemy applying 24% break vulnerability, and slows their speed. Break effect is obviously necessary. Break vulnerability is excellent, and the lower speed potentially keeps enemies' weakness broken for longer. Very nice synergy overall. Other possible light cones that are very solid for her. Most popular FTB choice will be the 5-star Fall of an Eon from Her to Shop, especially because you can essentially refine it for free. This grants immense attack percent that will convert to extra break effect. The extra damage percent is negligible. Then we have 4-star Indelible Promise. This is the only 4-star providing break effect with 56% at S5. Now, realistically, it's just those 3 that have the highest synergy with Firefly scalings, but if you lack all 3 of them, then you can still consider high base attack light cones as a possibility, because high base attack means more value from attack percent, which means greater gains above the base 1800 to convert to additional break effect. This includes Clara's light cone, Danhung Imbiber Lune's light cone, and also 4-star Nowhere to Run. These 3 light cones also have a bit of attack percent, but most importantly, they have the highest base attack with attack percent combo of these light cones. General recommendations: signature light cone over Eon S5 over Indelible Promise S5. Alright, so is Firefly F2P friendly? In my opinion, yes, but with conditions. Her early Eidolons, E1 and E2, are undeniably her strongest Eidolons that honestly rival the strength of a usual E6 character. This doesn't mean that her E0 is lacking, it just means that her early Eidolons are way stronger than usual. Her SP management at E0 is pretty noticeable because of how fast she goes and how necessary it is to use your skill. But with proper preparation, team setup, and patience with abilities, Firefly can all in on specific turns that use those skill points at the highest value. That being said, E1 removing skill point usage from her E is basically like a cheat code because it essentially saves you 4 skill points every single ult, which is equivalent to an entire Sparkle ult, while also obliterating enemies due to the super break damage. For her actual build, I'd say a light cone is pretty friendly. Not too many options, but the options that are available are pretty good, so no stress. For her relics and planners, which we'll get to, everyone is technically on the same playing field and needs to farm the same thing, so it's just RNG at the end of the day. So overall, I think she is F2P friendly, and it's just her skill points that will be a bit finicky to manage. Relics and Planar Ornaments. So 2.3 HSR drops both new relic sets and new planar sets, which both become Firefly's best in slot. We've got Iron Cavalry against the Scourge, providing 16 break effect, but more importantly, a 10% ignore defense for break damage, and then 25% ignore defense for super break damage. The 15% is an additional amount on top of the base 10%. In the meantime, most players will probably start off with a 2-piece combination of just raw break effect. And if you're adventurous, you can also consider 4-piece Quantum, because it does have ignore defense, and especially enemies with Quantum weakness, it gives double the value for 20%. Besides those sets, there really isn't anything else worth considering. 2-piece break effect should be pretty easy to set up initially, and then from there, work towards 4-piece Cavalry. For Planar Ornaments, the new best in slot is really specifically tuned for Firefly, granting 6% speed and 40% break effect when hitting fire weakness enemies. Fire weakness implant is guaranteed on Sam's skill, so this is a free 40% break effect at basically all times. Since no one will have this set at the start of 2.3, we can rely on good old 2-piece bandage reset. Since Firefly will always be above 145 speed with optimized builds, she'll be gaining 36% free break effect from the set. And if you don't have any of these, you can just run 2-piece rainbow, doesn't really matter. Main stats, very streamlined build path to hit stat thresholds. For the body, run attack percent. This converts into break effect, and Firefly doesn't scale from crit, so crit rate or crit damage is useless. For the boots, speed is recommended over attack percent. So for these boots, speed allows her to hit 150 plus speed without reliance on substat, but if you god rolled and have insane speed substats without sacrificing her total break effect, then attack boots is an alternative because it converts to more break effect. Attack orb over damage orb. Both of them have minimal DPS increase, but again, attack converts into break effect, so it's better. Break effect rope for obvious reasons. Firefly has free energy from her E, so she won't need external sources to help her. Now for substats, obviously optimize around break effect, and then get a little bit of speed if you need it, attack percent if you need it, and effect resistance if you need it. Once her speed in Sam form is past 210, all sources of speed are pretty heavily diminished unless you magically hit 280 for 5 turns per ult, where in a perfect world you might be able to hit this, but you probably destroy your break effect substats trying to do so. So maximizing break effect from substats is in your best interest just to deal as much damage as possible. Recommended stats. So given her playstyle, we're going to assume hyper carry level of investment, at least for her ultimate and talent levels, because those are the most important for her to reach speed breakpoints and survive in human form. Level 80 out of 80 character and light cone, all trace branch nodes unlocked. Effect resistance nodes can be skipped, but still recommended because her being CC'd is a pretty big loss of DPS or can just get her killed. Her signature light cone has pretty low base attack, matching that of 4-star Indelible Promise, so her attack range is going to be pretty stable around 2.5k. This assumes minimal substats of like 10 to 20% and 2 main stat attack percent from the body piece and the orb. For her speed, in order to hit 210 in ult form, we're going to assume at least level 9 or 10 ult talent, which is minimum plus 56 speed from ult. Ruan Mei would also grant 10 since her base is 104, so we're looking at potentially 66 plus speed from external factors. This means Firefly herself needs to sit comfortably above 144 to 154 to meet that threshold. Level 10 ult would reduce this to 140 to 150. With trace nodes plus 5, speed boots plus 25, 2-piece Planar plus 6% of her base 104. Without any substats, she's at 140. This puts her at the perfect point of 0 speed substats, assuming level 10 ult and Ruan Mei. Extra speed substats would improve potential for a 0 cycle MOC for those earlier waves, and if you're adventurous, you can attempt to go for 280 total speed, but that means you need about 12 speed per relic, which is every single relic except boots because it's the main stat already. For break effect, she has a pretty big range from external buffs to hit about 360 plus, so for Firefly's personal break effect on the stat page, aim for 200 to 250%. There's a couple things that don't show up. So her attack conversion to break effect does not show up on the stat page. 2,500 attack would be giving an extra 56%. Her 2-piece Planar ornament set also gives 40%, that doesn't show. And then you have external buffs from in combat from Harmony MC, Ruan Mei, and other supports. So she's getting anywhere from 200 to 300% break effect in maxed out situations in battle that does not show up in the stat page. This means that potentially you could be seeing 500% plus break effect on Firefly with all buffs applied. For crit, not needed, and energy regen, not needed. She strictly uses her E for energy and break effect for damage. Team synergies. So this is going to be a pretty loaded section talking about her optimal team comps and also things I discovered regarding her playstyle. I waited for this section to talk about it instead of in the trace section because it's heavily team dependent and most of you won't encounter these problems if you run her best in slot team. That best in slot team constitutes Firefly plus Harmony MC, Ruan Mei, and Gallagher. In this team, Harmony MC and Ruan Mei are the two extremely valuable supports. I would say if you plan on investing in Firefly, you may need to commit Ruan Mei to her team because the value she provides is way too much to separate them or just not have Ruan Mei on that same team. Ruan Mei by default is one of the most powerful supports to use basically everywhere, so I'm warning you now that playing Firefly without Ruan Mei is the difference between night and day, and if you're used to Ruan Mei being other places, you might have to commit her to Firefly. So this is a blessing and a curse depending on how you view it. Firefly is extremely strong and has incredible DPS uptime, rivaling that of Acheron, but she is extremely dependent on specific supports to achieve that. This best in slot team in this Memory of Chaos floor 12, which has a memory imprint that caters towards break teams, is near able to 0 cycle Argenti. I replaced Ruan Mei and Harmony MC in separate situations with the universal support like E6 Pella for def reduction, and the clear time in those same runs dropped to 6 to 7 cycles or even slower than that. Obviously, I may not be playing optimally, but just from my experience, it seemed so different that I was like, wow, you really need these supports to have her do insane damage. In these longer runs, the downtime when her ult is on cooldown and she needs to generate energy feels like an eternity even with her high base speed. I noticed all too often that I would need 2 human form E's to get back into Sam form, with sometimes 1 human form E being just 5 to 10 energy off from reactivation. This, of course, is not worth a main stat ER rope or 2-piece ER set, as both of those constitute a large portion of her break effect. So while this experience is still in realm for 3 stars in Memory of Chaos, this increased fight time was very noticeable. Harmony MC provides extremely strong super break enhanced damage from her A2 trace, provides multiple sources of break effect buff from her ult, Eidolons, and potentially Watchmaker 4-piece, and also deals significant super break damage themselves. Ruan Mei provides 50% weakness break efficiency, res penetration from ult, and double break during ult to keep enemies vulnerable for more turns. Both of these characters provide immense utility that it really feels like Firefly is kind of like an Exodia-like character. With all parts of her kit and all supports, she can deal some of the highest consistent damage in the game, but even if one of those parts is missing, the damage, consistency, and the speed of weakness breaking drops off a cliff. So for the sustain units, Gallagher is the most valuable for his ability to apply his ult debuff and also be incredibly SP positive. His fire typing also makes him able to reduce the same toughness bars that Firefly implants, helping reach weakness broken states faster than other sustains. Or other sustain units, prioritize those that are SP positive since Firefly is so hungry for those skill points. In general, for this part, I'd heavily recommend investing in Gallagher because as it currently stands, he's just too useful for his synergy with Firefly. There's no other team currently that values his utility like this one does, so in my opinion, it's worth to commit him strictly to this team. Maybe in the future, we'll get a 5-star sustain unit that has specific synergy with super breaks to fill this last slot. Overall, Firefly's team synergy is one of the strictest thus far, and I suppose that may be the price to pay for such strength. Since she doesn't scale from crit and only needs 1 primary stat to deal damage, this seems to be the current primary drawback from her kit. Personally, might just be me, I think it's more of a blessing than a curse because this allows you mentally to build those relevant characters with an all-in committed mindset, knowing you're getting the best value out of them. That being said, for those that don't have Ruan Mei or don't have as many characters, I understand that this is a pretty big negative. And that should be a very detailed guide for Firefly. Overall, I think if you have the best in slot team comp, she is insanely worth the investment, and you can bring the team to basically anything because Firefly can implant fire weakness. If you don't have Ruan Mei, I think it's okay to revisit Firefly at a later time. As of the current patch, Ruan Mei is having a rerun alongside Firefly, so if you're okay with digging into them pockets for the Stellar Jades, you can very much pick all the necessary ingredients for a full course Firefly team. If you guys enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate if you gave it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel and lets YouTube know it was pretty good. Otherwise, anything I missed or was changed will be in the comments. Thank you guys for watching, good luck on pulling Firefly, and as always, we'll see you next time. Take care.